Hello, welcome back to Shit Women Talk About. I'm Jennifer and I'm here with Chris. Today we're going to talk probably, who knows, but probably about modern dating, some toxic masculinity, and building healthy connections, whether you're single, married, dating. Based on last episode, we got some great feedback, got a lot of questions, and so we're going to go through some of that today. But first, we're probably going to start with just a little life update. Chris, what's going on in your world?
So lots going on in my world. I've had continued upheaval in my world, in my life. I am needing to make a move back to Mississippi, where my mom, my 84-year-old mom, is. That's some of the things that happen in your 50s. You need to move back to where you used to live as a child to help take care of an ailing parent.
Yeah.
And so big stuff there. Continuing to try to start my job search again, which is incredibly stressful.
Yeah.
Jennifer's going through the same
I
thing.
feel you, sister. So we need to do body doubling sessions to do
I
it.
know.
It's like
That's always so
nobody wants a job search, okay? Like that's it's just like the job should just be given to you. Like a stork comes and says, "This is the job."
it's so
Um,
stressful. But I've had some really, I still am having some health issues around menopause and mental health meds that haven't worked for a while that I'm now changing. So that's a interesting experience. I now, being in Oregon, have access to a genetic test that's going to supposedly tell me what I should be on now.
which is cool. Sounds cool.
Here's hoping, right?
Yeah.
Because that's been a roller coaster, white knuckle roller coaster ride. But I've had some amazing, little sensitive today, so just FYI. I've had some amazing friends show up for me within the last few weeks, including a visit over the last couple of days from one of my long-term partners in my life that I love very dearly, and so I'm rocking a couple of days of sex hair these days right now. So it's a little rough at the moment, but it was really nice, and I had good connection and love and overabundance of positivity within the last 24 hours. So that's my update. How about you, my girlfriend?
Love to
Because we
hear
haven't
it.
had a lot of time to talk over the last week, so we're going to be like, what? Come
Yeah,
on.
it's yeah, I've been busy. Like, will also always accept a lovely tousled look when it's related to a female pleasure. So
Not like ooh, trying to
like this. I actually went to a friend's birthday and I had some previously tousled hair and it was natural. So I'm wearing it natural today, but it's chaos. Like when you have wavy curly hair, you just like don't know what you're going to get. And so he made a comment about it and it said something like woke up like this. And that I thought about for days. And then I messaged him like, did it look bad? Because, I've gotten a lot of comments about my hair when it's natural.
look so good like that.
No, it looked like that was a true, like it looked really nice. I'm like, okay, but I had sex hair as well, so I was like, like, oh no, yeah. And friend, and lover visits are always welcome. I had a bestie visit, and I got to meet her boo, which was nice. I feel like when you have long distance best friends, I FaceTime all my friends, and I kind of felt like I knew him a little bit, but first time meeting him and seeing their dynamic together. So that was really interesting and also really needed. Like I took vacation from my volunteer efforts. That's like a full-time job for me for politics. So yeah, we haven't had a lot of time, but there's been a lot of wins with my volunteer work and hopefully a transition plan in place for me to resign and focus on actually finding a paid job that I spend just as much time on, but and moving out from Canada to Washington D.C. So I'm hoping that goes, but haven't had too much time for social or this podcast, which is why it's been so long since we filmed or like recorded an episode. Also, we had a resurgence of a 4-year crush who is still very much emotionally unavailable. I did ask the universe a couple years ago. I just want one more encounter with this elusive man, and the
It's
universe provided.
fun. Those are so fun.
Yeah, the universe provided what I asked for, but I'm gonna just let him be. This time he did not ghost. He
Let
communicated, so that's a step in the right direction. Uh,
Release him back into the wild.
Released. Will I also potentially continue to show up as a snack in the bar that he works at? Absolutely. Um,
Absolutely.
I like to dangle the forbidden fruit, like feel desire even if you're healing. um so yeah, it's
Always fun. Always a good time, really.
yeah, always a good time. But anyway, I think that's probably a good segue into like what we want to talk about today. Like um this year, mentioned in a few episodes ago, like I haven't been dating at all, pretty much, like
Mm,
just having like long distance lovers or just like little welcome
yeah.
casual things. But people are dating. I
Yes,
think
they are.
there's
They are trying. In fact, I think I have three of my Portland girlfriends that all three had first dates of some sort this last week. So I've had some, you know,
some
waiting for
chatter. Yeah, my friend came over after a date. It was her first ever dating app date because she's been in a
Mm,
long term relationship that she recently got out of. And that's wild to me. Like she's saying, like, this is my first app date, and I'm like, wait,
absolutely.
what? I've had
Yeah.
like 7,000. It's
Yeah.
nice to hear from other people when you're the single friend but taking a step back and focusing on other things.
Yeah.
Hearing from your friends when dating, I think like a lot of people talk about, well, red flags, or how do you get to know this in early dating, and a lot of it is based on my experience in general. Is like you can't date um, someone's potential. Like Chris and I were talking about, like you were telling me about. Well, why don't you tell us about it? The image that you saw. When someone tells you who they are, believe them energy.
Yeah. So this is I find I intentionally put myself, both Jennifer and I have a, you know, love of relationship conversations, and I am both of us intentionally put ourselves in circles where we can be positive, resources for women dating. And so I have a consistent thing that I've been seeing, that is men who are physically telling people who they are, and women saying, what, any tea, any red flags, anybody got any info here?
But maybe they mean something else. Like
Maybe
maybe
that
mean
means, and so so I'm going to give a specific. So a specific is that an image of a man that they post on their dating profile, and they literally have tattooed on this hand and this hand, mind fuck,
sounds fun.
right?
My piece, like I would be an immediate swipe left. But I think when women, this is why I stress like other significant others, like platonic relationships are so important, because then you don't feel trapped in trying to find emotional intimacy with people who are not emotionally available based on
Correct.
society saying that your partner in life, you need to have a partner in life to be happy. Like that's outrageous to me. So like I feel like women consistently go after things that are not worthy of them, their time, energy, or whatever, because they're grasping and wanting that connection that they can get from other places, you
So
know?
let's go back to the exception, not the rule, that we talked about in last episode. So the exception is, maybe has this human that is, do I love a tattooed man? Yes, I do. I'm all about that.
Yeah.
Um, hot as hell. No judgment. But when, we as women, I think, have a real tendency to explain our way out of things,
Yeah.
and and wish and want for what we would like for things to be, instead of what they actually are.
Right.
So when you are in a position where, you think, oh, this is going to be the exception, this man that has literally posted proudly, mind fuck, on his social,
He's gonna
you
make
know,
your life hard.
right?
He's gonna mess with your mind proudly.
He is telling you
Yeah,
what to expect. And in the circle, conversations are had where other women are then saying, don't judge people because they have tattoos. Don't judge this, don't judge that. And maybe this person is not the same person that he used to be. And, everybody deserves a second chance.
sure.
Well, I do believe that,
Yeah.
you know.
But it's what they're showing you. It's not that he has the tattoo. It's not what it says. It's that it's the prominent, like when you look at dating profiles, you can
Yeah,
assess a situation. If I were to have it, and I say this when helping women set up dating profiles. If all your
absolutely.
pictures are you kind of tipsy in a bar,
Okay.
you're asking for something different than a well-rounded profile that shows you having some wine, having a martini, going on at a beach, doing a hobby that you love, like having a
Take me to
well-rounded profile. Yeah. If a man, like they put less, I think women tend to add context that isn't there. Men are not
Mhm.
that complicated. Like
Mhm.
when they
They are,
say something, that's
and
what
that's
they
a good thing in a
say.
lot of ways. I will say that men not being complicated in some ways is actually a good thing because a lot of them, I do feel, will tell you who they are.
At
This
least
dude
who they
is telling
think
you.
they are. At least who they
He's
think they are in that moment. So like
absolutely.
for your crush guy, it's like, yeah, I have enough wherewithal now and understanding of him, our history, his current kind of situation at a high level view. And I can dissect exactly what he's thinking and why he's doing it, how it's a self, whatever. Not my problem. Protecting my peace. I put I encounter, I sent a very clear message with my expectations and needs. And at the end of it, I was like, if that sounds intriguing, we can talk about it. We can meet up when we're sober and go from there. And if not, totally cool. Everything goes back to like the way it was. And he responded like, hey, I'm not looking for anything right now. I think I need to actually like take a step back and focus on myself essentially. And I'm like, absolutely. I wish you healing. I appreciate you telling me you have my terms should anything change because he's not relationship material for me. We're too big of a gap in where we are in understanding and growth in self introspection. However, we have an extreme sexual tension and chemistry. I think he's funny, and I don't know. It could be nice to have a little something something before I. But it's not my job to like convince a person to see my value, to be around me. And I think a lot of women they want to like solve for X, and it's like you cannot date on someone's potential of hardball dating. Communicate your needs, communicate your boundaries. If you don't know those, figure them out. Um,
It's about
and
thinking about going into something with your eyes open. So
yes,
you know what? You want to go out with mindfuck guy? I mean, you're
yeah,
making a decision. You are making
yeah,
a decision, but your eyes should be open
to what it is.
what it is
Yeah, for sure.
and that it is most likely the rule and not the exception, like really leaning into, like we talk about intuition all the time, so leaning into like listening to your intuition. I feel like we have really good intuition. We get that gut feeling, we get the thing in our chest that says, "Oh, this is like ramping my anxiety up," and we look for, well, am I wrong?
Right.
That we look for a place to convince ourselves that that's not true.
Yeah.
And what we need to do is we need to say, my intuition is telling me that I need to be on alert here. And I need to think about the fact that the rule is that the guy with the mind fuck tattoo on his hand is going to fuck your mind up.
He is clearly because you're posting about him
You're
and asking for
about
advice. Like,
for advice.
yeah, I think the best advice I've ever heard is like, or the best kind of statement in dating is like, you cannot say the wrong thing to the right person. Like I've been totally, and so with this specific resurgence dude, my friends are like, don't send him the paragraphs. Like, cause I'm autistic. I want to send the paragraphs. I need to outline this situation here. I need clarity because he did give me a mind fuck several years ago. And I'm like, no, thanks. Absolutely
Yeah.
not. And my friends are
Yeah.
like, don't send the paragraphs. And I'm like, if he cannot handle me at my paragraphs, he doesn't get me at my cute one liners. Like,
Right. Yeah.
sorry, like you do not get sexy Jen, fun Jen, quirky Jen
Yeah.
unless you deal with detail gen and
Yeah.
like you I am who I am, and you should only want people around you, friends, lovers, whatever, that make you feel like that's okay. If you're constantly amending your communication style or overthinking, that is a dysregulated nervous system. That is not a healthy connection.
That is the biggest, most gigantic thing that you can do to love and care for yourself is listen to that intuition
Yeah.
part. And to your point of like authentically showing up as who you are, the right person in your life will appreciate that and love you for it. And you know, for example, my partner that was here said, like, I was a little nervous to see him because I've been in really a kind of a bad place, with my mental health and such all the crazy things going on in my life. And so I told him, I'm like, man, I'm not going to I'm not going to be fun, Chris, right now. And, I'm kind of, sad, Chris, right now. And what I got in return from that was love and care and accepting and understanding and, telling me that I needed to, be kinder to myself and, like, you know, I didn't, like the fear is that if you don't show up as fun, Chris,
Right, but
is
you're
that,
a complex, you are a complex, we are complex beings, and
mhm,
we are not always on. I think we have to really honor that, but also it creates a level of vulnerability that when we're, when someone is vulnerable, there's two reactions to that. Complete avoidance and running away because that person is unhealed and cannot handle you, cannot
that's right.
handle the situation, and that has nothing to do with you. The other is reciprocity. It is mankind with support or shared vulnerability. Like my lover in Finland, he wants to send me a present, but he wants me to pick it out, and I haven't had time to like look at all the links and that he prepared and sent for me, and like that was so nice. And this is like a month and a half ago, and I'm like, I promise I'm gonna get to that. I love the idea. Thank you so much. And he's like, chill. Like, this is supposed to be a pleasurable
That's
experience. You
right. Yeah.
are really, you're doing so much for the world right now. You're doing so much for the community, so much for politics at your own time. There is no rush. But that was like me. That was me thinking like, oh, well, like it is you. It is likely self-driven. You have to show up authentically and allow people to show up back, which we have talked about in other episodes. Like, but they can't, people cannot show up for you if they don't know what you're needing, if you cannot communicate your needs. And the right people are going to listen to what you've said and respond in kind, and then you get to determine what you do with that response. So the
Yeah.
guy who said, I'm not looking for anything, I could have said, well, I don't think he meant that, so I'm going to go crazy and consider all the ways to convince him that he whatever, like,
Yes.
which happened a couple years ago because I wasn't as in tune with what I needed, wanted, and my standards and boundaries. But different Jennifer now, like, I'm not trying to chase you.
So I had this really fantastic thing that made such a huge difference in my mindset and my thinking this last couple of weeks. And I'm going to throw it in because you just made me think about bringing it up. So if you have not read Atlas of the Heart, which
Mm.
is a Brene Brown book, her most recent book it's very, very, very good. But she's also got I think it's on Netflix, a little mini series of classroom discussion around it.
Vulnerability as well. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, she's a shame researcher, if you don't know who she is. And she's very, vulnerability focused. And I just love her work. So this was a really impactful thing that I got out of the Netflix watch after I had read the book. But the enemy of connection, the near enemy of connection is control.
Yeah.
So the far enemy is easy to see, right? Connection, mind fuck. Far enemy. Mind fuck guy. You're not gonna have connection with mind fuck guy. Come on,
We should
get
have
it
asked
together,
him on as a guest star.
right? like we know, like we want connection, right? And if you think about connection, that's what we all want, you know? And the far enemy of that is super easy to see. That's cruelty, that's meanness, that's backstabbing people, that's cheating on your partner, right? Those things sever connection. But the near enemy of connection, that's what we all have problems with.
Yeah.
And the near enemy of connection is control. It's us trying to control ourselves, other people trying to control us. And control has been a huge problem for me.
Same.
When you try to control your outcome and you try to control what that person thinks and how they're going to respond to you, and am I saying the right thing? Am I doing the right thing? That's you trying to control yourself into being something that you're not, so that you get an outcome that you hope you get.
That you think you want, because
You
really,
think
if you're massaging an outcome, that's not authentic and it's not going to be fulfilling, which then creates the cycle of not feeling connected or
you're not
fulfilled.
feeling connected.
um
So I
Melissa added.
loved that so much.
Yeah, I agree. And it's been a huge thing, like in my life, like massive control issues. Now I'm like, if it's not my monkeys, it's not my problem. I can't control that. I'm gonna do me and allow
Yes.
people to do them and
Yes.
respond accordingly because I
Yes.
trust myself. Melissa asked, so what do you do when you're fiercely independent and sharing what you need isn't easy? And how do you make those connections? And I
Ooh,
think like that's just a lot of self work. I think it's pushing, because I used to have massive walls up and everything in my life was controlled. Like even in my romantic relationships, I was a total power position. Like I knew exactly how to control the situation so that I wouldn't get hurt. It's a defense mechanism, it's avoidant behavior. And through a lot
it
of
doesn't
self,
allow other people to actually see you or
yeah,
show up for you. And that's what you want at the deepest, darkest part of yourself, is you want other people to show up for you. And when you're doing that, you do not even allow that to happen.
yeah. And it was pervasive throughout all my relationships. Like I would say, like I had friends and a lot of them saw me as a very close friend, but there was only one that actually knew me. And so
Yeah,
that took like 10 or 12 years
baby.
of breaking down a lot of my own
Mm,
shit through therapy, through self introspection, through reading and connecting and finding honestly safe spaces, psychologically safe relationships that show me that my life, like when you have the right people around you, you actually don't need to do all of that. Like it's not like, well, I have a new friend here and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna be late. Like I'll kind of stress, like, oh, I'll be later. It's like it's totally fine, no, not to worry at all. Like I'm not phased, and I'm like, yeah, cool, cool, cool. And like he's like very chill and doesn't, but like he's so accepting of my crazy, and it's refreshing. It's like not everything has to feel, whatever. But I think that's a practice that you have to do inch by inch, putting a little bit more of yourself out there, understanding your attachment style, how that shows up, dating tendencies as well. If we're talking about dating, which I've talked about Logan Uri's book,
yep.
and it's on her online, she has a test to attachment style and dating tendencies. And for me, that was so helpful in understanding how I'm showing up in romantic relationships and what was my actual blocker to
Hmm.
finding connections that I wanted. So I think it's for how I would answer that is a lot of self introspection and what is your part, like instead of like how everybody else has impacted me or whatever, what is your part in how you're showing up and how can you change? And if
Yeah.
based on your growth and your amendments, the people around you don't, that's when you got to go, which could
Yep.
be a nice segue into toxic masculinity in relationships. But
So I'm going to throw one little thing in before we move that forward,
yeah,
because one of the main realizations that I had around vulnerability is that vulnerability includes there being the possibility of loss.
yeah, risk.
There's risk.
Yeah,
When it's real, so vulnerability isn't, oh my God, I, lost my handbag and it really upset me, because, like that's sad, that's unhappy, that's whatever. But like vulnerability is like if you tell somebody that you love dearly that you can't be aligned with something,
Mm-hmm.
or that there's a possibility of loss,
Yeah.
there's a
Well,
possibility that if you tell this partner that you really hope, like that was really vulnerable of you, Jennifer, to actually tell this guy, here are all the things that I need, and if that means that we're not going to have a connection, then that's just what that means, even
that's
though
just what
I've
that means.
super crushed out on you for the last 2 years.
Right. I mean, Danielle, so the friendship expert, and I don't know if I've mentioned her before, but she's a fairly new obsession of mine. She focuses on female friendships specifically, but Danielle Bayer Jackson is her name, and she talks about vulnerability in a way um, that
Mhm.
is different and actually better. So it is that element of risk and loss and discomfort for you. So a lot of
Yeah.
times, like, I'll be interacting with people and I'll talk about sex, I'll talk about orgasms, I'll talk about sex toys, I'll talk
Yep.
about
And people think that's vulnerable.
uh,
It's vulnerable for us.
it's not vulnerable for me because I love talking about that stuff. Those are my special interests. Like, it's not vulnerable for me. Now, what is vulnerable for me is asking for support. It is putting myself not
Yeah.
when I'm
Just
advocating for others, super easy. When I'm
easy.
advocating for myself, when it comes to this, that, and the other, that's difficult. And that is vulnerability for me. So someone's vulnerability can be someone's like safety zone and vice versa, right? Like it's figuring out what is your level of vulnerability and inching closer because 10 years ago, all of that stuff, there was no vulnerability. Well,
Yep.
it was a closed freaking, it was a wall. Like there wasn't an inch about anything, like nothing about me. It was all other person focused, like light and day, right? And the only way that transition happened was those inch by inch discomfort moments, but also finding those safe spaces that show you it's okay. And
And
also,
we found that within each other.
yeah. And all of my friends, all of my friendships, right? And
Mm-hmm.
also realizing like what's the loss there? So like, okay, I tell this guy XYZ and he's like, "Nah." And I'm like, "Cool." Guess what? That saved me possibly a month
Yeah.
of mind fuck. Like like going back to that guy. That saved me
Yeah.
a month. Like it, if I yeah,
Let's do toxic masculinity.
yeah, we could. Yeah. So yeah, mind fuck into toxic masculinity. We got a lot of questions. Like we do a poll at the end of the podcast of like, what do you want to like for each episode we have a poll, and the last episode's poll was like, please talk about toxic masculinity, how it shows up, like how to kind of, recognize it early in dating, how to address it. Like if you're in, I have friends or, clients or whatever that are in relationships, long-term relationships that are in toxic relationships and they can't just leave, or so they think. Like let's talk about toxic masculinity. What do you feel, what do you think that
So
looks
can we
like
start
when we say
with
that?
the pro with so like not all masculinity is toxic. So
No,
let's talk about something
let's
that
talk
you and
about,
I
yeah.
talk about. Let's
Yeah.
start with the fact that like I have these wonderful men in my life that are like rugged as fuck, very masculine men
Masculine,
who
yeah.
can, like traditionally masculine, right?
Mhm.
Traditionally masculine, very physical, campers, hikers, fisher, strong man. And some of those men have shown up for me over the course of the last year and throughout my life in ways that are beautiful, shocking, and amazing, and they can bring such vulnerability and strength to that. And I've seen it over and over. Especially, I've had a friend of mine show up just incredibly for me over the last week. And you and I have talked about like the view of masculinity. We're seeing Tim Walls,
Ugh,
masculine,
the most perfect
beautiful.
example of positive masculinity. This man is as manly as they get. He's doing videos about look at your air thing in your engine. I don't even know. Like I didn't have a dad, right? Like I didn't have a dad. And so like his little dad videos, I'm like, I'm loving it. And like,
I know. I want him to be my dad. I actually had a really good dad, although my dad knew nothing about stuff like that because my dad was music.
musician. Yeah, well, like you see this person at such a, prominent stage right now, really embodying what it is to be a healthy man who's secure in themselves, who has a loving and cherishing like relationship and family and friendship and
Mhm.
humor and sensitivity. Um,
Great
what's
dad.
Yeah, great dad, great VP pick. Like he elevates Kamala like no one else. Like this is the energy, ladies, of like if you're like I think he just got on a stage and was like every man needs like you if you don't know strong women like what's going on you need to be supporting strong women like he will run. I saw him run off a stage. A little girl wanted a signed book from Kamala. He ran off the stage, got the book, handed it to Kamala so that she could do her thing, and then he was like he's like her little helper, and that's the energy that a VP should be giving. Like he's not overshadowing her, he is elevating her, and like that's what our men in our love life should be doing. They should love your energy. They should treat you like a goddess and a princess, whichever vibe you want, or both. And
You
like
want, maybe you don't want to be treated like a goddess and a princess, but whatever it is that you want,
whatever
you
you want,
you
which
are.
that's another episode entirely. Because we all need to step in our goddess energy. But like the like you need men that aren't intimidated by your personal success, that
Mhm.
aren't competing with you at every turn, that are unwilling to compromise or emotionally shut off or think like sensitivity is, quote, I hate even saying it. I grew up in a gay men's bar, but sensitivity is gay, or like you're a bitch, or like that kind of energy. And honestly, a Trump supporter, anyone who's a Trump supporter, I'm sorry, I'm putting it in the sand right now. You hate women, whether you know it or not. Like, and that's not the vibe. So like, I love that we're seeing like a Tim Waltz energy that is the epic version of a positive masculine role model, but then surrounding him, you have these other, famous or prominent individuals that are, again, when you see vulnerability, when you see positive masculinity, it gives other people, it's not a locker room vibe. It gives people the ability to show up in that way. So those are the types of role models our little boys and our men and our boyfriends and husbands and fathers need.
Love it. We want it.
We
We
love
want to.
it.
So
Yeah.
let's talk about what we don't want to see.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
Let's talk about what we don't want to see. And it's so confusing to me, because I didn't grow up. I grew up with a dad who was not traditionally, masculine. He's a drummer. He is a teacher. Musician, jazz musician. My brother also is, not traditionally masculine. I tend to not date traditionally, masculine men. That's not who I'm drawn to. Um, and and so when I see that insecurity, it looks like for grasping at, getting their needs met over anything or anybody else.
yeah,
It
what
looks
about me energy? Like if a
like,
man ever says, "What about me?" I'm out. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I know we can talk
no,
about we can talk I'm personally out, but like
it
there's
also
ways to deal with that.
it goes to control.
It goes to control.
It's like looping back to our first part of our conversation about saying, like, what breaks connection is control. And the toxic masculinity part seems to me that it's very from a control perspective.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that there's a lot of, psychological levels of where that comes from. But like letting us as like, what do we like? What does that look? What did like? Talk a little bit about like what does that look like or feel like to you when you encounter it? And I want us to move into being able to talk about like how do we deal with it? What do we do when we are encountering it? And like kind of figuring out, like I want to have this be like a not a
Yeah. I think
toxic
when
masculine man bash. I just
yeah,
want it
for
to be
sure. But
a
like I
solution.
I
know?
think like for men, it's like also a green flag for men is, or even white people, like we're talking about racial, racial anti racism work and all of that stuff. Like
Oh, you
when
just
we're
hit on
when
something really good because that's even perceived toxic masculinity.
what? Sorry.
That could even be so like if you get into like stereo, like racial stereotyping and that, then you get into perceived toxic masculinity when it may actually not be that.
Oh
But that's
yeah, that's a whole different. Okay, yeah, I was like, wait, what? That's a whole different conversation. Okay,
I have to sprinkle that on top though, because
yes,
you said
that's yes, that's totally different. I was like, whoa. So, but like when you're talking about the premise, so like if I'm talking about, because when I look at privilege, like this privilege circle, and I have a really good resource for this, but like people, white men get so freaking defensive when you say they are the most privileged being. A straight white male is the most privileged being. This is not an opinion. This is this is the way the world works. There's a gender pay gap, there's a race pay gap. And I have so many conversations on the street with random ass men that I would never ever go on a date with, that are like, what are you talking about? Women have more privilege. Our rights are literally getting taken away. Like, I actually don't know what you're talking about. And it's baffling to me. Like, but it's the
when
same
not
concept with racial work. When a white person gets super defensive, when a person of color or other like underserved like community like them and says, this is how I'm hearing you, this is what you're, and you get defensive. No, you need to be listening to the person that is marginalized. And women do not have more privilege in this world like than men. So we're going down a hole.
so here's this, a good layer of like check yourself is they're the if the masculine person is able to say that they recognize that,
Yeah, I think number one is recognizing.
right,
That's
that's
what I was saying. Yeah,
right? A boundary and a barrier around what you know and accept. Because, like, I find that if I tell somebody something that doesn't work for me, or that, for example, I don't give out, you and I both, have conversations, I don't give out my phone number, when we met on a dating site. And a good man that's not a toxic masculine man will say, I
that
get it, I
boundary.
understand you, I see you. A toxic man will say, fuck you, you don't trust me, bitch.
Well, so
Right?
this happened to me. So this, like in the dating app context of how to kind of suss out
Hmm.
energy, is I always do place a boundary. Whether I find a place to insert a small boundary, whether that's like, I don't want to go out in that area, or I'd prefer if you can come to me, or that timing doesn't work, or that day, or yeah, I don't give my phone number before I always say, ultimately they're like, can we get your phone number and move to app? And I say, I, for various reasons, do not move off app until I meet someone and decide that I want to see them again. I've had a positive reaction to this, like, oh, of course, yeah, no problem, we can stay here. And then that incentivizes them to get the date on the books quicker. The other is, don't you know you could just like block people's numbers? And it's like, oh, don't you know, like I've had stalkers and you can use a different number and hound me forever. Like, it doesn't matter. I don't need to give a positive, like, safe person a reason for my boundary. Like, it should be
Right.
accepted. Like, that's it. And this, when you're on the date, if you are uncomfortable with a physical touch, or they're leaning towards sexual conversation and you don't want to have that, when you place your boundary, and a boundary is about what you, if someone else's behavior continues, what you will do, right?
Hmm.
Not trying to change their behavior, right? So accepting small boundaries is a sign of positive
Positive.
masculinity.
I love it. They go, oh, I totally get that. I want to be in a place that helps you feel safe. And I
Yeah,
get that. That I'm like, oh, sexy as fuck. Oh my
yeah,
God. Like that's a good sign of, masculine and secure. Let's call it secure
call it
masculine
secure.
rather
Yeah.
than toxic masculine.
Secure vibes anyway. I think how to, if you're in a relationship, talking about briefly, like how to introduce, like if you're in a situation or you really do like someone and for
Mhm.
whatever reason, I do want, and I think this is like in a different episode, but it's encouraging moments of vulnerability and making a safe space for the man, because obviously a lot of, straight men, we don't raise our boys to be comfortable. And that's or we are now a little bit more, but there are gaps and blockers to men showing up this way. So providing the space and energy for a man, and I use the we're not really dating, we're not really strangers dating expansion pack on like date 2 and 3 to like, it's a game. So like we're asking each other questions and it is a safe space to share. And I do that Saturday. And I do that with my friendships that I've known for 4 years or 10 years. Like I love those games because it allows you to
Yeah.
share something you may not be talking about regularly or get to. So I think that's a way to like address certain things to see if it's possible for you to move forward. That's one option. But
Yeah.
sometimes I do think the gap is too large and people should just walk away knowing, again, not dating someone's potential, knowing when someone tells you something, believe them. Like paying attention and trusting your instinct, going back to that part is so
Yeah.
important early stage, right? Um,
Agreed. It's so important early stage, and I know we need to start wrapping it up here. The over like you know my takeaway from all of that, is that we want to see, we want to see men who show up in their secure masculinity. We love it, and we want
yeah.
to see those men supporting each other. And I think I've been seeing a lot of it in my circles of that, and it's been really positive and good.
Well, it's because
And
we surround ourselves with a level of caliber across all levels, backgrounds,
yeah,
genders, whatever. And I think
yep,
whenever you have that, but I'm constantly reminded by like tertiary friends or whatever, like
yep,
that is not the case. And
it's not.
so, I know people that are in marriages of like long time and they have this like sunk cost theory of like, oh no, there's nothing I can do about it because we've got kids or we've been dating for a long time. Like there are, and I think we wanted to talk about like foundation for healthy connection and communication and conflict resolution. And I think that'll just have to be the next episode all in of its own. But
Plan.
like there is always a path through or out. And I feel like a lot of people, maybe you've been dating for 6 months, 3 months, you're like, oh, well, we should keep going because I was single for so long, or I've been married for 20 years, and there is a way through or out. And I think that when you have green flag energy of a partner that wants to share emotional labor, who has a growth mindset, who is curious, who recognizes their role in the relationship and growth in the relationship, then that's a green flag energy and you can get through anything if you're on the same wavelength. But like
Yeah.
so many times I hear women, and when I'm thinking about it, I'm like, you guys the gap is so large, they could never catch up, even if they started diligently working on themselves today, period.
But I'm gonna throw this in as my last statement. If you have a partner that they are putting in as much energy as you are, that's a green flag.
Yeah.
If you do not, if you are the person, like, this is the telltale for me. If you're the person who is thinking, you know, I'm doing all of this work and I'm doing all of this thinking and I'm doing all of this, moving it forward. And if that person is not capable of doing that work and putting in the energy, and you are doing all of that for that person, it is most likely that that is not your person,
Yeah. But I
because
also say this.
it doesn't make them bad. It just
Yeah.
makes them in a place where you just will never be aligned.
Yeah.
And you deserve happiness, and you deserve to find an alignment, and that alignment very much can just be with yourself.
Yeah. I will just add quickly that if you don't communicate that if he would just, then you're not giving them the opportunity,
Correct.
but whatever. So like we are definitely beyond time. I think our like literally we talked about this last time. We could talk about all of these things for so long. There's so many topics, so much nuance. If you're still here, we appreciate you sending in questions. And like, telling us what you want to hear next, but we want to talk about creating that foundation of healthy communication and connection and conflict resolution. We got a lot of comments about like, how do I approach this, or how do I say this without feeling too much or too demanding or whatever. There's a lot of that energy. So like talking more about balancing that emotional labor, and working through things with your partners, whether they're romantic. All of this advice, I think, in my mind, goes through romantic or platonic, of course. But
Yep.
So yeah, I think we won't do a 4 hour Chris and Jennifer FaceTime, but we certainly could.
Well,
um,
I think that there's a lot of good in the world, and I think that the big takeaway for me is being able to acknowledge when it's not good and being willing and vulnerable enough to walk away.
yep, I love it.
And so,
All right,
if you know when you know when those two things feel right inside of your body, you should listen to it.
exactly. All right, I think that's a good place to end. I love you, friend.
I love you, friend.
Bye.